Hello everybody, and welcome to another tutorial in camera and lens repair. And this time I will actually, well, one of you out there mentioned that it could be very useful if I could show how to declick the Canon FDn 50mm 1.8. And the N is of course the new version. It would say it doesn't have the breech ring, but instead it has the bayonet to mount on the camera. So you turn the actual lens. So I think it's a popular lens, and it performs really good. So why not use it as a video? A full video. In here there is some mechanical stuff and springs, and there could be an issue if I just take out the spring, I mean the little steel roller. Yes, it's a steel roller, not a steel ball, and the little spring for the aperture click function. And yeah, I actually tried to figure out what kind of damping grease one could use with the aperture ring itself. But more about that when we come closer into it. It's quite easy in a way. We just have to follow some guidelines. Our main reference is the red plastic dot here and this little pin here, not the one down here, but more the actual on the steel ring here, part of the mount, and that we have to, take good care of, so we have everything proper aligned when we put the mount in again. Another good thing is, it's just easier for me to show, the index mark here. Set a mark here on with a permanent marker or whatever you have, just a mark here. And it's also good to have this as a mark, because in relation to the release button, as we would say, put the lens on the camera, yeah, the whole thing will turn that way over to the index mark. So this red dot will go all the way over to here. So if it was as the camera, the lens was mounted on the camera. But more of that. If you want to add your lens to a mirrorless camera, in this case is a mount from PhotoDX Pro for the FD to Nikon. No, I'm not sponsored by any company, just to make that clear. I actually bought this for my own money. So, and this is an old lens from the second-hand store. But if we mount the lens on here, we have to do it correct. Install here. This pin down here is the one that goes against this pin, and it acts as the same like the when I put the lens on here, it will act as the same as it goes down to this gap here. You can see. So yeah, but let's jump into it. It's not that hard. So we begin to set the aperture ring 22. That's it. And then we will like if we put the lens on the camera, we'll turn this ring, this black ring here, and simply press on the little part here, press it down a little, but also press down this part over here. You could do it with a tweezer or a screwdriver, and then the lens will, the mount will be free, hopefully, and then we can turn it all the way over to the index mark, and then the mount is actually loose in a way in relation to the release button. The thing is, there is no tension on the on this pin here, and not really much on this one, but it will make it easier when you take off the ring here. So this part here, the mount that turns, will not just pop out. Another thing is important to set the lens to infinity. That's our start as it looks right now. And then we take off 3 screws around here, one there, there, and up here. So off of those, and it's good with a magnetized screwdriver. It makes things a little easier when we take the screws out. Well, there is a little tension here on this part of the ring here, but it's not really much. But it's good to have a finger, 2 fingers on here on the mount. So that. So now you can see it's quite loose at the moment, but the ring here is loose. So when we lift out the steel ring here, and nothing else would happen. It's actually this spring down here that makes the tension on the on this ring here. So off of that, and now we can make sure it's all clear. We could also, and this is just for showing how things is when you makes it probably easier to see. So I also set a mark here, well, since I've been into the lens, and it has to be on not on the middle of the button, but more onto the left side. See here, over here. And that's our start. So when you take out the mount here, press this a little, and then have a good grip here. I mean, with rubber gloves it can be a little tricky, but then we can take it out, and this is the part I actually push on. This is the fork, kind of U-shape lever pin hole, I don't know what it's called, and it goes into that pin here. See? And when we are here, this pin here has to be on this side of that part here. So if this part is too much over there, or this one is too much over here, you cannot put the mount on, because this part here will actually interfere with the part down here. So as I see it, maybe I'm wrong, but that's just what I see. So that's it. We set the lens to 22, I mean the aperture to 22, make sure that So this pin here, I mean this ring here, with this little metal aluminium thingy is sitting correct. Then you could, just for your own, I mean, when you put the lens back together, it will be good to have some reference mark. And I think it's a good thing to have a mark here. But it's also good to have a mark up here. On this side of this hole is not a screw hole. I don't know what it is for, but it doesn't really matter. So you could set a scratch down here. On here, I just set a mark and move this over to here. So now things are actually lined up as if we put it together. But now I will continue with the, I mean, it's good to have those reference marks in case something happened, and you just put it in, and or you just take it apart and forget to set the marks. The marks is important. Now, to take off this ring here with the release button, we need to take off 3 screws. This one, this, and this. In my lens, this is not a screw hole. It could be different in your lens. So off of those 3 screws, and nothing will really happen when I take off this ring, as long as you set it to aperture 22. That's important. So, and the last screw, and when we can, then we can take off this ring here. There's a little lever here that will just stay in place. It cannot fall out. See, and the release lever here, nothing will really happen. It will just sit. There's a little spring, so in case you just press the button and the spring will flew away somewhere. It happens. I can tell. Now we are into the actually closer to what we need to take out. See, under here, this is where the steel roller and the little spring is for the aperture click. And we need to take that out. But as you can see, nothing will really happen if I move the aperture ring, as long as I do not come all the way over to 1.8, because if I do that, the ring will just pop off. But we need to have this metal ring here, this part here. We need to take that out. And there's a little gap here, you can see, and a little pin here, kind of. What we need is to set the aperture ring to 8. There. Then we can move this metal ring so it will be unlocked. So there. So this area here, I can just lift off. It's good with a dented tweezer, as you can see here. So I can then press, not too much, but then I can lift it off. So that's it. Now, take good care of not moving too much on the aperture ring, but now we have to set it to 1.8, or as long as you can come with the aperture ring. So it cannot come any further, and as you can see, it's not possible to really take it off until you go to 1.8. That's it, because then there are 3 cutouts here, one here, actually one here, and there's also one over here. And they will, when you move the aperture ring to 1.8, it will be possible for those to come free of those area here, here, and over here. So you turn the aperture ring all the way over to 1.8, and in that way, remember the little roller and the spring, so it will not just flew away, and you gently lift up the aperture ring, because then you can see it's actually free of those. And now we come to something. See this little roller here? It's not a steel ball, it's a roller. And the aperture click spring is right down there. So this one has to sit in that way, not that way. So off for that little spring, and it's a bit it's a bit sticky from the grease that is on. So, and that's the only thing we need to do in this case. But as long as the spring, I mean the aperture ring does not have any click at the moment when I put it on here, so there will be a problem, and it's because of the two. There's actually 2 springs. We can see one here, the long one here, and there is something underneath. It will say for this one and for the other one. The spring here is quite strong, and it's also not so strong on the other one. And of course there is also a spring in here for the aperture blades. So there's actually a lot of tension that goes onto this onto the aperture ring. So as I see it, we need to add some heavy damping grease. I don't know what kind of, because I haven't tried. I do not have that heavy grease. Maybe it could be some silicone, or maybe lithium grease, or but I think it has to be something that does not damage the plastic ring here, just to make sure. But now I can put it on, put the aperture ring on again. I mean, there's nothing else we can do in this case. Make sure this little tab here, it also has to be click in place. So if you just put it on, you can see here this little the part of this hook. So we need to press in the A button here, so it comes down to place. Now we can turn the aperture ring all the way over to 22, because then it cannot pop out. So then we can begin to put the lens back together. Not that hard. This ring here, and we can just set the aperture ring to 8, and then hit the, you have the gap here and the little pin down here. So now I can put this on without any problem. Another thing is, make sure this part here does not disappear, because it's the one end here, this one here, goes down to this gap or whatever it is, notch. So it has to sit correct. And if this one disappear, you have no what do you say, this, when you move the aperture ring, this one cannot follow and will just stay where it is. So this one is a kind of a lock for the two parts here to be connected, just to make sure. So we put this on and we turn it all the way over to the gap here and press it down. And of course we can just set the aperture ring to 22. Make sure this one sits here all the way over to 22. Now then we can put this ring on, and this little lever will just go on over here. So we can just do that. Make sure the screw holes sit where it should. I mean, they can actually only sit in one position. So then use this one hole. Maybe the screw hole in other lenses are a real screw hole. Not in my case. So then it is quite easy. So we can move this, I mean, as long as this part is fully pressed down. But we'll just stay at 22. And then I can put the mount on here. Make sure this is more over to that side of this little hole. And there has to be a little gap here between this part and the other part here. If not, it will be more difficult to put the mount on. So now I press this a little, put this, the fork, this fork here over this pin. And this one has to be on this side of that pin, this one. So I push it in here, put this on here, hopefully. I know it's difficult to see on camera. So there, and then you press it down, and then you could press in the little release button to make sure things sit correct and lock it into place. So now this ring here, it will not fall out at all. And then I can add my steel ring here. Make sure this pin here is in line with this, with the red plastic dot here. The other red dot will just stay here in line with the index mark. So no problem. So load a screwdriver first with one screw. It will just make it easier. So you put this on here. Make sure the screw holes here are lined up proper. So there. And then we can just set in the first screw. So now the lens is actually without any aperture click, but it gives another problem that I will show you. You see, now the lens is in locked position as it was on the camera. So we have to release it, press in the button and turn the mount all the way up to the red dot here. So now the lens is in its release position and ready to put on the camera. So we can just put it on here and say that's all fine. I can advance the camera and fire the shutter. The next problem is actually if we set it to something like 11 or so. Look at what happened when I fire the shutter. Can you see the aperture ring move? Because there's no friction. And it's even more if I set it to 16, fire the shutter. Whoa! It goes all the way over to 22. And that's why because there is quite a lot of tension, especially on from 11 up to 22 in my lens. Could be different in yours, maybe from 5.6 or so, or maybe 8. But it will, as long as the springs in here and no damping grease around the inside of the aperture ring. So and it will without, see, it's a problem. And it's also the same if we put it on an adapter. We can just put it on here without any problem. So it locks into place, and I set it to all the way over to where the aperture begins. And if I turn the aperture ring, not much will happen. It's more on when we go to, see, it's the same problem. So that's why the aperture ring actually needs some kind of a very high viscosity of grease or damping grease. So now I can just uninstall the lens here from the mount, press in the release button and turn the lens. So now it's free again. And now it's all the way back to what it should be. No problem there. So that I hope that can help someone if they want to declick their old FDn lens. So yeah, see you soon. Hope it can help. See you. Bye bye.